children in the Orinda schools. We lived in Orinda for 40 years, so I've had a lot of experiences with Wagner Ranch, with people on the board, etc. And when I heard about the school bus, I really registered concern. Our family lives on Los Conejos, which is just off of Loma Vista, and everything you've said in terms of the problem with the school bus is totally right. I mean, it is narrow, it is dangerous, but should our children be required to walk up that hill, that is the ultimate danger. And that's why well, thank you. I mean, I feel deeply concerned about that. And having come and gone on that hill over the years, people don't obey the speed limit. UPS whips up there, construction trucks whip up there. Why are they more important than our school bus and the safety of our children? So that is really where I'm coming from. And I think the other side of that is, I was in real estate for many years in Orinda, and the people who live at the top of El Toyonel and partway down will see their property prices change drastically. And I don't think that's a fair thing when they have bought in good faith, expecting a school bus to be part of their service. So I just really hope that we can come up with a creative solution. I mean, we're geniuses on one hand, and I'm sure we can work together and with the City Works and create a situation that is a win-win for our children and for all of us who really treasure living in Orinda. So thank you.
So I appreciate the enthusiasm of the audience. There may be people here who have a different point of view. And when you clap for somebody, you discourage people who have that different point of view from speaking. And that's not what we want to encourage. So I would ask you to restrain your enthusiasm regardless of whether you're in favor of what the person says or opposed to it. The next speaker is Luke Franklin. Welcome.
So I'm a student at OIS in Orinda, and every single afternoon I ride the Route 18 bus home from school. And I personally feel that eliminating the bus route would make me personally feel more at risk walking up the hill, where every day people drive with excessive speeds and over the double yellow line and in other ways that would threaten the safety of the pedestrian. And I just feel that personally I would feel threatened having to walk up that hill every single day.
Thank you.
Can we maybe, and completely appreciate, I'm looking forward to hear from everybody tonight. One thing I don't know, if we want to say that, you know, nowhere in our report does it recommend that anyone would walk. I just want to make sure I point that out. I'm just saying, I just want to be clear that there's no recommendations in the report. I've never heard anyone on the board or from the program ever say that they would want students to walk. So I just want to make that aspect clear, that I understand some folks would say, well, my student will have to walk if they don't have the school bus. I understand, and I'm not taking away from that point of view, but I just want to make it clear that there's been no recommendations for walking on the hill. Certainly we would agree it's very dangerous, and that we would not recommend that students walk on the hill. It's dangerous to drive on the hill.
You're not allowed to respond to public comment.
So it's really
You're not
difficult
allowed.
to hear the speaker if there are this many comments, so please. Calm down.
He's responding to public comment. He's commenting.
I know, and we call you. No, sir, it is the opportunity to make your public comment is when you're called. Thank you.
And I'm sorry if I'm out of order to make a comment. I wanted to make sure that it was clear that, you know, because I remember some of these comments from last comment session as well. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that that's not something that School Bus Consultants is recommending, that students would walk. And so that's all I wanted to say, was make sure that that was clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Allaire, followed by Larry Sutter. Welcome.
That is unbelievable.
Hello, my name is Laura Lair. I have served in the volunteer role of bus parent liaison for Wagner Ranch Elementary School for the past 2 years. I was disappointed when I learned of the school bus consultant's proposed changes to the La Miranda bus program, including the elimination of bus service on El Toinal and Camino Don Miguel. I support a plan to continue research on the California Vehicle Codes, narrower buses, and collaboration with Public Works to provide safe bus routes, safe bus service, and a safe ride for our kids. I have 2 children, a kindergartner and a 3rd grader, who love taking the bus. My daughter was on the school bus in 2014 when there was an accident on El Toinal. I recognize that the roads are narrow, and the bus and cars need to drive slowly and cautiously when passing each other. A narrower bus would allow bus drivers to travel more safely while navigating the curvy roads and unique topography of the Orinda Hills. Smaller, narrower buses are available. As the bus parent liaison for Wagner Ranch, I look forward to working with you on creating the safest bus program. The consultant's proposed changes would affect approximately 40 students at Wagner Ranch, about 10% of the families. After speaking with many families at Wagner Ranch, most families have told me that they would no longer use the bus service if the only solution is a group stop at the Orinda Library. They would drive their children to school because of the added complexities of getting their children to the library, only to then take the bus a short distance to school. The bus is the safest way for children to get to school, and I would like the bus program to pursue the use of narrower buses to accommodate for the narrow roads that were identified in the study. In order to make the safest routes possible for our kids, please continue collaborating with the City of Orinda Public Works Department to make any necessary road improvements or vegetation maintenance. Please continue to promote increased ridership instead of decreasing access to bus transportation in the La Miranda neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Sutter to be followed by Michael Bowen.
Thank you, Laura. I echo what Laura says. I'm her neighbor, and I completely agree. And the First Lady, I must really say, struck a chord. I never thought about it, but there will be children walking on that hill. And the first time we have an accident, a child will get struck. We'll come right back to this report, and we'll think of today when we just picked through regulations and found reasons to say no. I just retired from the military after 26 years. I was a pilot in combat for 12 years. We never said, let's find a way to not do something. You find a way to do it. Let's get this done. Let's work around the regulations properly, but if we have a kid that gets killed, my God, we're all going to be at fault. So let's find a way of not even thinking that it's not an option to say we're not having a school bus. Let's just find a way to get it done, and then we'll work together. Thank you.
I'll restate my request that we all limit your applause and cheering.
Let me say one thing. Thank you for your service.
Yeah. Yes. Following Mr. Bowen will be Amy Roach.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'd like to begin my remarks with thanking our city council. It's worth for all of the time and energy you've dedicated to hearing our community and our front board. It's deeply appreciated. My name is Michael Bowen. I've grown up in Orinda. I've traveled buses off and on for the first 16 years of my life, pre and post Prop 13, which is, of course, important. And my primary interest is the number 18 route, because that's where we live, but I'm going to focus my remarks on the process, because I've, over the course of this, found it increasingly disturbing and dispiriting. So how did we get here? 2 years ago, a study was born, and 2 years later, and $70,000 in taxpayer funds were dispersed on a consultant who has exhibited misleading, inaccurate, and confusing information, and a remarkable illiteracy regarding the California Vehicle Code. Now, I don't know where the staff and the board was when this was happening, but I'm very glad that we're doing our homework now. And I'm very glad that staff is taking the time over this last 2 weeks to reach out and ask the kinds of questions that really need to be asked when we're talking about gambling with the safety of our children. This is quite the experiment we're trying to conduct here. And the El Toinal Hill is a narrow, windy place. And it always has been, and it always will be. As many of the speakers have pointed out, how we address that and how we deal with that is what makes this a good, great, or mediocre community. So where do we go from here? Well, I have my own feelings, and they're strong. The first thing I do is fire the consultants. There's no sense supporting good money after bad. I encourage this board and the staff to do its homework and continue that process. That has been salutary. That has been a healthy, community-involved process that I think has brought out the best in us. And people, it's been difficult, it's been charged, but people have contributed good information and knowledge and research and time out of their busy lives to really try to find a solution, and I encourage that to continue. I reject the staff proposal to table this until summer vacation when everybody's out and the decision will be easier. That's bad policy. That is not a good idea. And I strongly encourage you to give this community at least a year to work with our city, to work with our good staff, to work with our representatives, to try to develop solutions that will indeed...
So that was 3 minutes. So
thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Roach, welcome. And you'll be followed by Lou.
Good evening. I'm Amy Roach. Thanks for this opportunity to talk about this issue. I urge you to not endorse the recommendations of this study with respect to Route 18. I agree with the staff recommendation in that respect. However, I urge you to allow the route to continue for the upcoming school year. Direct your staff to work with the community in the city to address whatever concerns there are. There needs to be an opportunity for the community to work with the city to address the concerns. My concern with your reliance on this study is that it is not substantial evidence for you to make a decision about El Toinal. I realize there was discussion of recent information from CHP that the site distance requirement may only apply in unincorporated areas. But that's not the only issue. The consultant's report is based also on 22504A, which addresses being able to pass a stopped vehicle. And that very clearly says, as you acknowledged earlier, upon any highway in unincorporated areas. So that language was before the consultants when they prepared the study in the first place. They didn't see it. I mean, they even handed the code out to the public at the last meeting with highlighted language from subsection A that doesn't apply. That calls into question their judgment. As far as the double line, where is the double line a problem? Now the consultants say they have data, but the study they presented to you that you were going to act on a few weeks ago doesn't have any of that data. We don't know where those problems are. We need time to find out if there is a double line problem. And lastly, if the issue is safety, that the consultant looks at the road and says, wow, this is a narrow road, and what if a car's coming and they can't pass? That's your sense that the road isn't safe. Well, what does the data show? This bus has been on the road for 22 years. And before that, as Michael said, he took the bus in the 70s when he was a kid. Where's the data that shows that's a problem? Because El Toinal is not a heavily traveled route. So if you're going up the road, you come to some narrow part where a bus couldn't pass, most of the time there's no car there. So that's why there hasn't been a problem for 22 years. We need data, not just a sense that this is unsafe. So my recommendation is that you give us time to look at the double line issue, because that seems to be the issue with violating the code. The safety issue lacks data. And if there is data, it's about the 22 years that the bus has operated safely. And frankly, if you take away the bus, and put all these families on the road, that's what's going to jeopardize safety with the narrowness of the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lula Bowen, followed by David Holt.
She's passing.
All right, David, your chance. And you'll be followed by Laura
Hi, everybody. I'm David Volk. I live on Allentown. I'm mainly here, I want to stand here with my fellow community members and neighbors. I have 2 kids still at Wagner Ranch, or rather they will be both at Wagner Ranch next year. One will be a kindergartner, and the other one will be in 1st grade or 2nd grade next year. So, of course, I think the main concern is safety on the hill. And I really do think that the school bus is the way to do it. I also think that the school bus brings the community together. And it's an opportunity for everyone to be here together and getting to school together. And it creates this sense of binding the community together. And I really hate to see the school bus go away for any reason. I also want to say, I live right across from OPP, Rinda Park Pool. But despite that, I really want the school bus to continue to the whole hill. That's what's most important to me. Because it's not just about having certain people benefiting or not, it's really about this whole community and everybody together. With that, I also still really encourage, I think Mr. Thies, you have some ideas around making that safer area. I think there's more we can do in addition to make the whole hill safer around mirrors, around ensuring that we have speed bumps on the hill to slow down traffic. I think there's a lot of things we can do, and I think a lot of people in this community have some great ideas. And I hope you'll take the time to hear them and to listen to those great ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Dixon, followed by Kevin Schrader.
Good evening. I'm here representing the Camino Don Miguel Manzanita neighborhood, and I know we're a little late coming to the table. I do want to note that the school bus consultant safety study noted that 22 students from OIS alone, and that doesn't include Wagner Ranch, would be affected in our neighborhood, Camino Don Miguel, Manzanita, etc. And we were not contacted directly, no notes arrived in our mailboxes, no direct emails were sent. The first many of us heard of these proposed changes was this week. I know there was information out there, but I'm just surprised at the lack of attempt to get it to the specific families who will be affected. I know the El Toyanal families have been very well organized, and that's why they're all here, and I applaud them, but I'm concerned that there are other families in Orinda, like us, who just didn't get the memo. We all have busy lives, we have jobs, and this is going to affect all of us. So I speak not just for the Camino Don Miguel neighborhood, but the El Toyanal neighborhood, and families who may not yet even know that this is happening. I'm disappointed that these drastic measures have been in the works and there haven't been targeted communications, but I'm pleased that the recommendation is to delay the vote. I don't think that delaying it to midsummer is adequate. I think that this needs to really be put out there for public comment and public response. I'd also like to note that as to routes 11 and 12, the Manzanita Don Miguel neighborhood, first of all, the report is wrong. It says that there are not stops with sufficient sight distance. I have an email from Juliet Hansen, and she and I spoke about this today. December 22nd, 2016, CHP drove our route and found that there's a stop at Baba Lincoln Los Altos with sufficient sight distance. That wasn't considered in the report. It wasn't discussed. It's just patently wrong. Furthermore, the study talks extensively about violations of Vehicle Code Section 21460, crossing the double yellow line. In fact, there are no double yellow lines anywhere from Minor up Camino Don Miguel and around Camino Don Miguel. So there's an opportunity to use that route without violating the Vehicle Code that there are vague references to, but no specifics about. Finally, and most importantly, this recommendation makes little sense as to our neighborhood. We are the official route for all heavy equipment for the minor road sinkhole repair. We have 20 to 40 loads of heavy equipment, dump trucks, cement trucks going up and down our roads every day, and yet we're being told that it's not safe for school buses. I'm concerned about the children who would be walking that route with that amount of traffic. I recognize that the LBSTA and the City of Orinda aren't the same agency, but there's a real disconnect that we're being told that this heavy equipment can drive our roads and it's safe to do so, but the school buses cannot, and the children should be walking on these roads with these cement trucks, these heavy mixers, and the cars that go too fast. I have a lot more to say, but.
Thank you. Kevin Trace to be followed by John Barn.
Hello, Kevin Schrade. I have 2 children going to Sleepy Hollow on Route 13. Underrepresented young here. And a daughter going to Brenda Intermediate School on 13-2. And I will represent the 30 students that will be displaced about 1.5 miles to St. Stephen's Church as an alternate route due to the quite subjectively horribly popular roads that were mentioned. Those roads have been repaired. I've seen constant repairs happening on those roads. They're also called out as being narrow. I certainly haven't measured them myself, so I have not seen any double yellow lines on the entire stretch, as was mentioned by the previous speaker. So I'm glad that there was some mention, I appreciate that, from the board member about Route 13. All of these routes that have significant changes and have a large number of students being impacted need to be considered. It really removes the possibility of using the bus route for my kids, and it affects our property value, our reason for moving to this neighborhood. So I really hope that that is considered. Thank you.
May I just ask you, you mentioned a couple of routes, so could you repeat the routes?
13-1 and 13-2, the Sleepy Hollow and LAS routes. Thanks.
John Barn followed by Maureen Nicanani Jones.
Is my time to start now or after the thank yous?
Start now.
Oh, she's starting. Okay, first of all, Bill, I want to thank you for standing down today and putting a pause on this entire movement here, so I appreciate that. I sent all of you a letter today. I think you all got it, and so I'm just here to basically touch on that. I'll probably read a little bit. I don't think I have time for all of it. But I do want to say one thing first. If we're going to use this report to trim some trees and to move some PG&E pools, that's about all it's good for. That's it. If you're going to use this report to discontinue a route, in my opinion, that's not your account. This report is not a report to discontinue a route. It's not done by professional engineers, not a land surveyor, not a civil engineer, not a professional engineer. It's not even stamped. Matter of fact, it's not even stamped draft, which I'm hearing today. It's just a draft copy. I've seen the copy. It's not stamped. It's not even stamped draft. That's 101 in engineering. If you have a draft copy, you stamp the draft. Okay, this one's not. This firm is not even based in California. It's based in Missouri. I sent you a copy today with the Secretary of State. They're not even registered in California. I would contend that both of those folks over there are not even employed. They're consultants to a consultancy that's giving you a consultant report. Ask the questions. You have a fiduciary duty to ask the questions. He has a really good point. How to apply the incorporated versus unincorporated rule. It's basically answering that determines whether a route is continued or discontinued. Yet he doesn't have the answer. You know why he doesn't have the answer? Because he's from Missouri. Okay? I hate to be harsh, but he's the one trying to cancel my route. So I'm the one that's got to drive the car. At the end of all this, I get in the car and take my kid down to the hill. He goes home to Hawaii. The other guy's in LA. He goes to Missouri. They're gone. There's no skin in this game for them. They don't even stamp the consultancy report. Measuring. Nobody's asked here how they measured. Some of these codes are off by 1 or 2 inches. If they measured with the measuring tape, the margin of error on that is at least a foot. Did they use a digital transit? Have you guys asked that? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Maureen Nicanani-Jones. She's been here, Joanna Wagner. Welcome.
Thank you to the board members and the city council members. I think first of all, thank you, Laura, our liaison at Wagner, for actually including those of us in the Don Miguel Manzanita neighborhood into this discussion. I will second what you said earlier. It's very disturbing to me that I found out about it through a friend at school and not actually from the city themselves. I've been a resident here for 3 years next month. I have 2 kids, a son who will be at Wagner next year, 3rd grade. My daughter will be at OIS. I moved from Oakland in the Rockbridge area. We chose Orinda for its excellent schools. We chose Orinda because we knew it had a bus system. I work full-time, as does my husband. We need to rely upon quality transportation for our children, safety being paramount, absolutely. I 100% support that being a huge part of this study. However, I also feel to delay this until we are all on vacation, unable to come to these meetings next month, is completely unacceptable, completely. It needs to be delayed further. It needs to be that this bus system stays intact for the next school year. Not only, as we cited already, that real estate values will be impacted if something does go into effect that will discontinue these services, it will change the demographic of this city, a city that I will not want to live in. And there are many other options. I'm a California native. I would move and stop paying taxes to the city. I don't have a way for my kids to get to school. So this is just a very small fraction of who actually cares about what's going on here. I will take it upon it personally to bring every single person I know in my neighborhood to the next meeting, whatever that is, to make sure that we get this point across that we cannot have this happen. And the solution is there. I work with consultants every day in the financial services industry. We pay top dollar for solutions, not the stuff I'm hearing tonight, solutions. And there are solutions that exist, including smaller buses that we've discussed. So find a solution for us all that works, and we'll all be very happy to continue paying our tax dollars to support these types of initiatives. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jeremy Konescu, followed by Andrea Persinger.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Thank you for the report. I don't want to say what everybody else said. Everybody made very good points. We just moved here a few months ago, last year before the school year started. We're on Route 12, so one of the stop where we walk our children to every morning and stand with them and cars congregate with the children, that's being moved to near the country club. So our children would either have to walk there or we would have to drive them. And I think the idea of taking the consulting report, which is good as a consulting report and an initial report, and saying let's use that to cancel school buses instead of finding a solution that's safe for children is irresponsible. I think saying that we're going to remove buses and a more, the other alternative is to have cars add to congestion during the early morning drive and have children standing on the road in places where there's already congestion is both dangerous and irresponsible. We moved here, again, for the good schools, for the buses, for the availability of our children to get there without us having to drive in the commute. It's very congested in the morning. And I don't think that adding inexperienced drivers and removing the experienced drivers from the bus route and then putting children on streets where it's already congested, where they're standing around, is a safe solution to anything. I don't think, if you're going to move the vote, it should be moved to after summer vacation, not when everybody's gone, because I heard about this at the bus stop this week. And I also would get all of our neighbors to come here at any time when they're here and not when they leave on vacation to be part of this conversation. So I hope that you take that into consideration and not try to move the vote to a time when nobody can come and have their voices heard. Thank you.
Andrea Persinger, followed by Andrea.
Hi.
Hi.
This is my son Drew, and I have a son Evan who is on Route 11. We're commuting to Don Miguel, and I actually bought the house because the bus pulled up as we were looking at it 14 years ago. Oh, okay. And so changing the bus route or eliminating entirely will just pose such a great safety risk to my children. Drew tried to walk home the other day and was nearly hit. Well, you can say. Yeah.
Not yesterday. Well, a couple weeks ago, I was just trying to walk home from Mina, and the road that was getting blocked off, a guy swerved into and almost hit me. And my other brother, Evan, when he was walking down all steep hill with all the construction trucks going up, he got clipped by a car wheel hit him.
And my husband was actually hit by our neighbor on his bike on our street. So to say that our street is safe enough for children to walk is ludicrous. And that's what they'll have to do. I work part-time, I'm a full-time mom to these kids, and it's very scary to think that we would put our kids at risk over some report that seems to me has no real merit. So I really want to implore you guys to consider our kids' safety over everything else, because the thought of my kids having to walk down to Minor Road to catch the bus when I have nearly hit kids, and I'm a very safe driver, because you can't see the kids. There's not enough bush trimming and everything. And so it's just, and also just, yeah, the city of Orinda can deem our street a thoroughfare for all the construction trucks and like zoom up and down. They obviously have enough clearance and width to handle those. They can't handle a school bus. It just seems ludicrous. It seems disingenuous. I want to implore you guys to just consider our kids. It just makes me sad. This is just not even possible or plausible for me to get 3 kids to 3 different schools on time. It's such a hardship. We're already stressed to the max as parents in this community. This will add a burden that is just unimaginable. And I will consider leaving too. It's like, I don't want to have to be on these roads more than I already have to be. So please reconsider. Camino Don Miguel bus is super important, right?
And I would just hate for me to have to walk all the way to school. It's about 2.5 miles. It takes me 30 minutes to walk from top of Camino Don Miguel Hill all the way down to Sleepy Hollow Lane.
So thank you.
And then our next speaker will be Megan Hollister.
Good evening, my name is Anya Luthier. I live on 201 El Toyana with my husband and my 8-year-old son. My son has been taking the school bus to Wagner Ranch since TK. I'm here to ask you to please consider our children. It is about our children, the safety. It's wonderful for kids to ride on a school bus for various reasons, because it teaches and fosters independence, social skills across different age groups, time management, and socialization and increased community engagement by our beautiful children. But most of all, it actually provides safety. The roads are windy and they are small. But by car, our expectation is that we would have to drive them to school by car. Is that safer? I understand that the report has been written in complete isolation, in a silo, of simply looking just at the roads and what the situation is. But we need to look at the safety of our children and compare what's the alternative. For you to say, well, we're not suggesting they're walking up the street. Well, what do you think is going to happen? We all going to be unemployed and have to shuttle our kids every day? That's not going to happen. So the isolation of this report is the problem. The process in which all of this has been started is wrong. You have to look at the safety of our children and look at it objectively and saying, what can we do to do better? Sure, there can be better, and for that it's good that we have a starting point. But it needs to be looked at the whole holistic view and not just at looking at one report. Secondly, I would like to complain about the process and the lack of transparency. We get text messages all the time when the bus is running late. I get these messages. But do you think I got a message about this? No. If it hadn't been for Wagner Ranch to tell us that this is happening, and I found out last week, half of this room would not be here. There's a lack of transparency, and that's shocking. That's really shocking. Lastly, I would like to ask a question, and I just put that out there. With all these recommendations in this report, what would be the number of reduction of buses and headcount and saving of costs? I just would like to know that answer, because that's not in this report. Is there a reduction of numbers, reduction of headcount, and reduction of costs? So that's just a question.
So there was no reduction in the number of buses.
Okay, that's good to know, but I think it should have been reflected in here as well. Anyway, that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Hollister will be Elizabeth Andrews. Megan here. Okay. Elizabeth, this is your chance. Welcome, and then the next speaker will be Lila Shine.
Hello, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Andrews. I live at 32 Charles Hill Road. My children also take the bus 13 route. I'm here today because I'm concerned about two things. One, it seems as if there's a confounding of degraded road and narrow road in our section. I looked at our road, and in our section, we're in 2019 supposed to be receiving a new road. We're slated to have our road redone. And it looks as if perhaps that's one of the major problems for the report and the changing row route. There's also no double yellow line. That's not part of our situation. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about was we're being asked to have a group stop at the firehouse on St. Stephen's Road. And my child would have to walk. I work. He would have to walk up the hill through the woods and cross 2 or 3 major roads in order to get there from our house. And that's something that I cannot consider. I would have to then stop taking the bus. Both of my children would then stop. I have a boy who will be soon in OAS and a little girl next year who will be in 2nd grade. So I implore you, please relook at the data. Could you please define which areas you find degraded, et cetera, specifically? And I just ask you to please reconsider this plan. Thank you very much.
And then our next speaker is
Thank you for hearing the community. I think it's pretty clear that everybody here is opposed to cutting the school bus service. The community is united, like don't cut bus routes, don't cut stops. A solution is needed. It's pretty universal. People are very unhappy with the proposal. And one other thing I want to state is that I don't believe that any of these stops go through any unincorporated neighborhoods. El Toyonal is incorporated. It's not unincorporated Orinda. So it's up to the board here to find some solutions that will work for the community. I moved to Orinda before there was a school bus service. My daughter benefited from years and years of school bus service, as does everybody here in this room. And it's important to get a solution to maintain service. That's all I have to say.
Longvo. And our next speaker is Michelle Sweeney. Will be followed by Jane Swift.
Hello, I'm Michelle Swady. I'm one of those parents who bought their home in good faith reliance on the existence of the school bus. In fact, when I purchased my home 3 years ago, I specifically consulted the bus website to confirm that I had a school bus stop. I just wanted to also add on the question I just heard about reduction in costs, and I heard Mr. Tadson, you say there was no reduction in school buses, and I understand that to mean that there is no reduction in cost, meaning the price that we pay to First Student out of our taxpayer dollars that come from Measure J, as well as the individual payments from parents. So we're all paying the same amount of money to First Student. But now, instead of going up and down El Toyonal 5 times a day, First Student is just hitting a group bus stop in the village a couple times. So they have a reduction in cost, I assume. I just want to echo how incredibly frustrated and disappointed I am in this study. To hear the consultants say that they didn't realize that Section 22504 applies to unincorporated areas, whether we're talking about subsection A or not, is shocking to me. The first 6 words of that subsection are, upon any highway in unincorporated areas. Time and time again in this study, SBC refers to the narrowness provisions of 22504. That's subsection A, the subsection that begins with upon any highway and unincorporated areas. In fact, I spent the first 2 days after the last meeting trying to figure out what their typo was because I couldn't even imagine that they had messed that up so badly. It's shocking to me. And so I hear them saying that they evaluated the routes for general CVC compliance as well as general safety, other general safety issues. I don't see the CVC compliance problem anymore. 22504 is out of the picture. I heard the SBC consultants mention that they were trying to save the few remaining stops on Route 18 that didn't have sight distance issues. I'm looking at page 56 of the report. There's only one sight distance issue regarding Route 18-1. So there's plenty of stops worth saving on Route 18-1. So we don't have a sight distance problem on Route 18-1. We don't have a narrowness problem when it comes to the vehicle code. And I just heard Mr. Thies say that the double yellow lines are discretionary. So I would like to know, can we safely replace the double yellow lines with something else? Maybe some kind of markers, reflectors, something that would cause the bus to no longer be problematic in terms of crossing the double yellow lines, because that's the only CVC issue at this point. And also, I would like to know specifically exactly where does the bus cross the double yellow lines, because we still haven't been told, and when we're not told that, we can't work with the Public Works Department and get answers to that. So that leaves us with school bus consultants' analysis of general safety concerns, and I think nobody here is buying it. That's what you're hearing over and over again. We're not buying it.
Thank you very much. Followed by Sarah.
Okay.
Go to town. Thank you.
You want to get my card when you go?
Thank you for wrestling with this obviously very thorny issue on behalf of our children. I know about 2,000 of those children because I'm the guy that heard people call when they don't have a teacher standing in front of them. And I have, I teach about 400 kids a week. I know loads of them. Every one of them is now in here, and if one of them gets hurt, I will suffer. When I was a child, my friend's sister died riding a bike. When she was struck by a car coming home from school. This is not theoretical to me. It's very real, and it's very important. And I'm very sympathetic to the difficulty we find ourselves in. When a consultant presents us an opinion that our roads should not be traveled by school buses, in nearly the same breath that they assure us that school buses are the safest form of school transportation. By a factor of 70, turns out, according to the extensive research over many decades of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So I encourage you to weigh the report they've written with that body of research judiciously. Those of us who attended the last meeting before reading the report were, quite frankly, a little dumbstruck. Some of us have looked into the credentials of the consultant and found them lacking. Some of us have examined the consultant's knowledge of the law and found it lacking. I'm a doctor of engineering. So I simply got together with my engineering friends on the Hill and checked the soundness of their work. What we found was astonishing. The roadway, contrary to their report, was not too narrow over the extensive portions indicated on page 11, but was 95% within compliance as it stood. For the lower half of Route 18, in aggregate, only about 500 feet out of over 2 miles needs some moderate repairs after an unusually wet season, or needs some lane rebalancing or adjustment of the center striping, or needs some adjustment to the gutters or curbs.
Conclude your comments, please.
Thus, the roadway of Route 18, in this engineer's opinion, and I've measured every foot of it, is eminently compliant or close to compliant with California vehicle codes. And I'm sure that we can get it there in a timely way for bus service this fall. Thank you very
So Sarah Butler, followed by Charlie Matthews. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Sarah Butler. I live at 233 Overhill Road. As some of you know, I was formerly on the school board, Orinda School Board. And years ago, when my children were younger, I was on the Orinda Traffic Safety Committee. That was back when we got Safe Routes to Schools money in 2001 by Sue Severson. And we did a lot of work around Glorietta School, and then also at Del Rey, Miramonte, OAS. So anyway, I'm very familiar with my street and all the traffic issues. And I was really surprised, although I knew that there had been some looking into particular stops where there was lack of sighting distance. But when I found out only quite recently in May that there was a proposal to eliminate certain routes, I was very surprised. And I just, I was a board member. I totally respect all of you as board members on your respective boards, and I know you know the Brown Act, but I was quite puzzled as to how did it get to this point without more knowledge of the public. And from looking at your website, realizing that you post on the Orinda School Bus website the agendas, etc. And I think it says that you post on the Lafayette City Hall door, but that doesn't mean Orinda residents are informed. So I echo what others have said about the lack of process. And I just want to also say, I brought up in several emails recently, that I was very surprised. I mean, first of all, looking back on the minutes, I saw that there was a request of the CHP to evaluate certain stops, and those letters were in the minutes attached from August and September. None of those had to do with El Toyonel. So it was quite a surprise, I think, to the El Toyonel community to find out that their route had been eliminated. I don't know how I'm doing on time. But I was quite surprised also to realize my street, the bus was going to be routed all the way around because of Davis Road. And I've sent a couple of emails about that, but haven't gotten a response. I went out today and measured it, just as Jim said he had done for El Toyonel. There's nowhere where it's less than 20 feet wide, and other places where it's about 25 or more. There's no double yellow line. There's no bus stop in that section. It's 3 feet long, 3 blocks long. And so I'm clueless as to why they say it's too narrow, and the bus therefore has to go all the way down Moraga Road to Glorietta Boulevard, and then back up Glorietta, and then come back and do a double take, and then go back. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I want to ask, where is it that we can have more of an in-depth conversation, those of us that care about our neighborhood, our street, whatever. I hope you come up with some solution where some of us can engage in a little more discussion about the issues that we really care about. Okay, well, that's my time, right? Thank you very much, and appreciate your thoughts.
Charlie Matthews, followed by Jason Matthews.
Hi, my name is Charlie.
Stand to the side.
Hi, my name is Charlie, and I live at 8 Miramonte Road, and I think it's scary if I walked up and down El Toyonel.
Next is Jason Matthews, followed by Sheldon Matthews.
Hello, I'm Jason Matthews. Time is short, so I'm going to try and go fast. I want to thank Amy for the time she's put in so far, and Larry for the time I think he's going to be putting into it. Jim, who has measured the lower loop of El Toinel, and I've got the upper loop. So I'm a data guy. This is going to be dry. I don't have an emotional plea, but I have measured the roads. Many of the roads, many sections of the road are near compliance. In the last meeting, I believe the consultancy was asking for 9 feet per lane or 18 feet for the road. The bulk of it that is not in compliance today is about 17.5 feet, and in many of those cases, 4-inch curbs have been installed on the side of the road, consuming 8 inches of roadway. So one possible fix, and I believe these curbs may be there for water control, is to move the water control mechanisms off of the road and onto the public land use side. Right? There should be maybe 15 to 20 feet of public land use on either side of the road. There may be some exceptions, but that's generally how it goes. I wanted to address the 2014 bus accident. That comes up a lot from the consultancy. The thing is where that accident happened, the way the double yellows were striped is that one lane is 7.5 feet and the other lane is 11.5 feet. This is not for an 8-foot wide bus. So we need to find some fluidity in how the double yellows are placed. There's a section of road on Camino del Diablo. If we were to remove 4.5 feet of that double yellow line, that would make that section of the road completely compliant. And if my math is not wrong, at 25 miles an hour, your closure rate's 36.7 feet per second. That would reduce the response time by 100 milliseconds. At 50 miles an hour closure, right, 2 directions, reduces the response time by 50 milliseconds. I don't see how that's an impact. So there are other cases. The consultancy likes to speak about this area of El Toinel that's between 331 and 345. That is a very, very narrow stretch of road. And as soon as I find my diagram, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Okay. So that stretch of road from where the double yellow, from around where the double yellows start is 16 feet and 8 inches wide. It narrows down to 13 feet and 6 inches, and then opens up again to 15 feet and 6 inches. There's no way to be compliant on this, but the bus only travels, I know I'm out of time.
Yes, you are.
The bus only travels in one direction on this section of road. We already know we can have these double yellows totally biased towards one lane. Give the road to the bus. Let the cars figure out the narrow side.
So our next speaker is Shelby Matthews, followed by Alvin Ziegler.
Hi, I'm Shelby Matthews. I take Route 18 to and from school each morning and afternoon. Eliminating the bus exposes me to danger as I may have to walk up and down the hill. We do not have fairy dust and we cannot poop ourselves to school. We need to keep the bus to keep us kids safe. In conclusion, we mustn't eliminate our bus. Don't make OIS kids walk up the dangerous road or down. Please keep us kids safe.
After Alvin Ziegler is Wendy Swinton. Welcome.
My name's Alvin Ziegler, and I'm the father of a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old who also, like many, we live up on El Toinel. And we too bought our house in good faith that there would be bus service provided, and we would seriously consider selling our house, which we've only had for 4.5 years, if bus service were eliminated. And in general, I do feel that this is broad sweeping radical change that's based on exceedingly short-sighted thinking. I'm shocked at the alternatives that are being proposed to sound far, far more dangerous, and to consider dozens of cars during rush hour coming to the library, moving in and out around our children. I don't know how that is not going to result in some kind of accident with our kids. And I actually am an Orendan who coincidentally actually grew up on top of Camino Don Miguel. And I from 63, lived on Camino Don Miguel and spent many of my years walking from the top of Camino Don Miguel to the bottom of Camino Don Miguel. And it is terribly dangerous, but in all those years I've never heard of an accident, except what was mentioned here, with any kind of bus. A bus is an extraordinarily bright object that is kind of hard to miss. I would like to hear some statistics about large vehicle accidents on these roads versus regular cars, because regular car accidents are being factored as if they are the same as a bus, and I just don't buy that. I don't think that works. So anyway, overall, this would profoundly affect our family, not only through the elementary school, obviously middle school, and high school, like the other families here. So thank you for your consideration, and thank you for considering postponing the vote beyond the end of summer. I think that's just completely ludicrous. Thank you.
And after Wendy is Christina Longhorn. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Wendy Patrick Swinton. I'm so inspired by all of my neighbors. I agree with everything they said. I have 2 points to make tonight. One is about safety, and the other is about a solution. So, just so you know who we are, we're the Patrick Swinton family. We have 6 kids. We've had a kid on the bus, Route 18, El Toinel, for the last 13 years. My statistics are here in front, but just to summarize our family, we've gone up and down El Toinel on the bus over 11,000 times. And I would look to the consultants and say, I have over 11,000 reasons to say it's safe, because all of our kids are still alive. My big point about safety is if you take our route away, the kids are going to walk. And I know the consultants say it's not in your report to suggest that we walk, but the reality of our life is that we're going to walk. So I'd like to just introduce you to 2 people I've brought with me today.
Hi, I'm James. I take Route 18, and next year I'm going to be an 8th grader at OIS. I take Route 18 to and from school every day, and if you have to take away the bus, she will make you walk downhill.
My name's Ava, and I'm going into 6th grade at OIS, and if you guys take the bus away from me, then she'll make me walking up and down the hill.
So the group stop at OPP is about 2.3 miles from my house. I don't want my kids to walk, but the reality of life and just how we live our lives, sometimes they may have to walk. It's just how it happens. And if we do a group stop down at the library, yesterday at 4 o'clock I drove by the library just to see how many parking spots there are at the library in case I had to sit and wait for my kid on the bus. There were none. So I'm thinking to the consultants, have you ever driven by the Orinda Library at 4 o'clock when the OAS bus would drop off 40 kids and 40 moms would be waiting there, 39 moms because I've got 2. So where are we going to park? How exactly is it going to work? I feel like you haven't thought through the whole process on any kind of solution. So to my next point, speaking of solutions, we've talked about a narrower bus. I think this is a great solution. We didn't hear a lot about it. I was a little bit late, so hopefully I'm not repeating anything. But here is the bus. So kids, I would like you to give these to our board members, just in case they don't have this information. Pass any extra out to the crowd. But there's 2 options for a bus. There's the St. Arrow bus, which takes 20 passengers, and there's the Roadstar, which takes 29 passengers. There's been no talk about the cost associated with the bus. Just so everyone knows, the 20-passenger bus is about $55,000, and the larger bus is about $62,000. There are none in California right now. It's a pretty new bus. They've been on the market for 4 years. They were designed to drive the roads of Manhattan. So they're designed to be narrow, they're designed to take corners better. Yes, they have mirrors, but we would like you to look into it. Please save our bus, keep our kids safe. Thank
Wendy, before you go, thank you. I just wanted to ask, I know that you sent an email, so this is the research that you've done also that you sent to us. I know you sent it to Juliet and then Christina sent me another copy.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Same thing.
Wanted to make sure that we
Yeah, I just
have
wanted
it
to make
all.
sure you had a visual, you could see it.
Good,
and
no, I just want to
it
make sure.
exists, and
Wanted to
we
clarify.
can look at it, thank you.
Thank you.
And I may have seen one of these when I was in Manhattan yesterday.
Yes.
And they work. And we need one, we can put it.
We need two.
Okay, Christina, welcome.
Hi, I'm Christina Lochran. This is the third time I've been up here, and probably just a little bit more on the emotional side. I live at 358 El Toinel. I have a fourth grader and I have a third grader, and we're working parents, working class parents. We rely on the bus. We need the bus, and I couldn't say any more. Please look out for our kids. We need the bus to have them safely get to school and get back home. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And the final speaker I have is from Laura Abrams. So if any of you have been holding off on turning in your speakers list to introduce you to the class, this is the time. Welcome.
What an impressive group, huh? How do you like that? Pretty amazing, very articulate speakers. So, I've lived on the El Toinel for 45 years, which dates me, but if you make, and this is before Larry and this is before Amy, when the El Toinel Hill was repaved, and you'll have to look in the public work records, the berms were added, the curbs were added. The curbs that have narrowed that street, especially along the strip that we're talking about, were not there. They were added by a consulting engineer who redesigned that road before it was repaved. You can look in the city records, I'm sure you can find it and come up with it. Those berms were not required by the city council. They were added to the design. When it happened, I was infuriated because it narrowed the street by about 6 inches on either side. And we didn't have a problem with water running across the street. I have no idea why they were put in. So it would be interesting to go back to that time, look at the way that road was redone and why those berms were put in. Because those berms are significantly adding to the narrow areas that you're addressing and that you're talking about. That's it. That's all I have to say.
So does anyone else wish to speak this evening? Please.
I don't know.
Give me your speaker so bad.
And I am councilman.
My name is Stuart House. I live at 217 Glorietta Boulevard in Orinda. I'm also the Director of Facilities for the Orinda Union School District. I wanted to let people know that thanks to our board member Julie Rossiter and our superintendent, we have this room this evening because they were concerned that our parents would have an opportunity to make their views known. And ordinarily, the space is not available for that purpose, but because it impacts the schools, you are here. So we owe them our gratitude for this meeting. And also I'd like to admonish the kids who've been wandering around upstairs in the office. So I shut the doors and cut off the elevator so they wouldn't do that anymore.
So well, thank you, and thank you very much this evening. We appreciate it. So I see no other speakers, so I want to thank you all again who have come. You're certainly welcome to stay and encouraged to stay for the subsequent discussion we're going to have. But unless somebody raises their hand, I'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. And I'll bring it back to the agency board. And I don't know if any of you have comments or whether you'd like staff to summarize what they have heard and recommend as next steps. David?
Yeah. I think the comments about finding solutions, what we need to do, that closing down the routine, and I can't speak to the other one, that's a route I've driven with my kids, that we've all driven in hundreds or thousands. But clearly, the community in Orinda needs a solution, because I don't think we want kids walking up there. And I know there's a balancing here of, liability for the district, for the authority. Obviously, we can't intentionally be recommending that we break the law by driving over double yellow lines. So we're bound by looking at a recommendation that says if you continue to do this, you're breaking the law, and if we're on notice, just like anybody, that creates liability. So that's, part of our conundrum. But it seems to me, kind of things I heard tonight about the double yellow lines, and there was one speaker who was thinking like I was, well, and we heard, is it Larry?
Can you speak into your microphone?
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So,
that's much better.
obviously, we need to find a solution. And I think I heard Larry say that the double yellow lines are not mandated, they're not required, and that those were put in there to create a visual cue to drivers so they can remain on their side of the road and when it narrows, so they don't have a head-on collision. But putting in a double yellow also creates a legal problem for the buses if they cross it. And that's, that is the code section that even if we have 200 foot of sight, and I know we talked about A being unincorporated or not, but the other code section, C, which is the one we really started dealing with, is about 200. That doesn't seem to have unincorporated in it. So that's what we have been struggling with, and that's what triggered this whole process. When we realized we weren't in compliance and we decided to do every site. We thought we were doing the right thing. We had a bunch of sites that were not in compliance. We called the CHP to come out. They wouldn't give us a waiver. And then we started thinking, well, if we're smart, we look at every site. We should. So it was intended to be a positive thing, that we were being good fiduciaries and checking every site because it's about safety, right? That everything should have 200 feet. Well, obviously, this has created a little bit of a firestorm, but I think what we need to do, and so let me get back to the two double yellow lines. If those are not mandated, again, I'm from Lafayette. If those are not mandated, then it would seem to me a solution, because you're trying to still be safe, is to take those out and put a single kind of speed bump line with little dots, so when you cross over, you feel it. Yeah. And therefore, that's one issue that could go away for us, is looking at kind of strict liability. Because that's our issue, strict liability. If you're a lawyer out there, you just can't get away from that. So one thing is to take up all those lines and put something that actually maybe even safer by putting in a bumpy single line so cars can feel it, especially at night because there's no lights up there and it's really scary at night. So that may solve one of our issues. The other one is to maybe address people that went out there and measured and check your measurements, because you said you measured them all, and compare some notes and see where we really do have a problem. And I have to say, I've lost a little confidence in our consultants in that report. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'm saying these guys are making me question it as well. He doesn't live in Missouri, he lives in Las Vegas, I believe. Arizona. So he doesn't go back to Missouri, just Arizona. So he is a kind of West Coast guy. Anyway, I think we need to think about kind of changing the double yellow lines, working with the city, with Orinda. I know there's issues, it's not my city, but I would hope there would be some flexibility there to still address safety, but not create some strict liability for our bus company, who is also, they're concerned about their drivers getting citations. If they cross the line, they can lose their jobs, right? If they get written up, they can lose their jobs. So they're concerned about their drivers. So there's a lot of competing issues here. But again, I'm hoping that people in Orinda can work towards a solution around the double yellow lines, because that is a key problem. That's a hurdle that we have to figure out. Let's see, okay. And then the other thing is, I know at one point when this first came up, and I know when we did, you know, it wasn't a big open session, they're always open sessions, but it was just a smaller group meeting. We talked to First Student about getting smaller buses. And I can't recall their exact response, but I was just curious, Julie, if you remember the response, because it was kind of, we don't run smaller buses. That's what I was kind of remembering. So do you remember what they, unfortunately they're not here, but I thought there was a problem for them about getting smaller buses.
It's my understanding they have smaller buses, they run smaller buses, but they're just as wide.
So, okay, so well, now we know there are skinnier buses. Anyway, those are my initial comments.
So I would concur with most of that, although I guess my sense is that we as the school bus agency need to identify the issues that might keep us from operating a school bus on various routes. And if it's a double yellow line, then we need to point that out, or if it's road width, we need to point that out to the owner of the road, which is the city of Dorinda. And they make the decision as to what, if anything, they're gonna do about it. And if they choose to do nothing about it, and we can only operate in violation of the vehicle code, then I'm gonna have a really hard time saying we should continue the service, even this September. I know there've been a lot of heartfelt requests to say we should just postpone this decision until the school year starts. But given the information we have now, it's not clear that we'd start with a bus. And the goal is to start at the beginning of the school year with buses on all the routes. And so, at least my sense, I think work has to continue over the summer so we can decide what, if anything, we have to do. Because I concur that 22504A deals with the narrowness of the road that's clearly unincorporated. There's uncertainty about the one about the visibility, which is 22504C. No one suggested there's a lot of uncertainty about the issue of the double yellow line, as long as it's there. And so, if we just wait, and meet again in September, the lines are still going to be there. And the answer will be fairly clear, at least from the information about what we can do. Because not only is the school bus agency liable, but each of the 7 entities that forms the school bus agency is liable. And it's going to be difficult, I think, for the Moraga School District to suggest that they ought to be liable for something that happens in Orinda, just as it would be difficult for the city of Orinda to say that they should be liable for something that happens in Lafayette.
Have liability for the JPA's actions.
So, I think we've identified a lot of information that we should gather. In terms of, I think we really need to get perhaps City of Orinda's and the school bus authorities, lawyers together to work with office and government to make sure that we're interpreting all the sections of 22504 accurately, and then work with CHP to see how they're going to determine it. Because if they cite, if they cite people under one of these codes that we don't think they're interpreting it correctly, well, that doesn't do us any good. I think the other thing we need to understand is under what condition will First Student continue to operate these routes? They have indicated that they have concerns. And another issue would be if they operate